In this lesson, we're going to be talking about SSH. SSH is short for Secure Shell. It was developed in 1995 as a replacement for Telnet and the various R protocols like RShell and RExec. There are several things we can do with SSH since it's an encrypted version of a Telnet-like protocol. We have keys that we need to deal with. One of the ways you can actually authenticate, let me show you a simple authentication first. This is just a very straightforward username and password authentication. Exit out of it. Since it's a public-private key means of encryption, what I can do is generate a key. I can use that key to do my authentication. So I have my keys right there, the ID_RSA and ID_RSA.pub. What I need to do now is copy the ID_RSA.pub into the .ssh directory. You can see here I'm using SCP, which is a way of doing an encrypted copy. It uses the SSH protocol set and all of the keys, and it does a copy from one system to another. SCP is secure copy. Asking me for my password because I don't have the key set up yet, and it's copied it over. Now I need to get into that system. And I should have the ID_RSA.pub, so I can cat that into my authorized keys file, and that's going to append it. And I can show you the authorized keys file. You can see I've got 2 keys in there. So I'm going to exit out of here. And now I should be able to SSH into that other system without any authentication. And I didn't use a password to get in, so you can see that. In addition to the authorized keys file, you'll see a known hosts file. So I'm going to go back into the SSH directory here, and you can see the known hosts file. These are all of the keys for the different systems that I have connected to from this system. So this is the key storage for all of the other SSH servers or systems that I have connected to from here. You can see there's a configuration file, and this looks like it was probably from the original OS install, and this was probably part of the skeleton that just gets copied over. In the configuration file, you can set up a number of entries for hosts where you can specify the host, you can specify your login name so you don't have to type it every time, you can specify an alias for it. So instead of the 192.168.1.39 that I'm typing every time, I could set up something like Bill, for example. And then I could just SSH Bill, and in my config file, I could set up the username I use on this system, and it would authenticate me using that username, and in this case, it would just use the public-private keys to do the authentication for me, since I've already set those up. Something about SSH, though, is the early versions were vulnerable to some problems. The problems in version 1, you could essentially decrypt the communication stream. In other words, SSH version 1 has been broken, and any communication using SSH version 1 is vulnerable to being read into clear text as a result of the protocol and the keys being able to be used to decrypt the transmission. So anytime you find a system that's running version 1, there's a possibility that you could decrypt transmissions between that system and whatever system is connected to it. In subsequent versions, though, that's been worked out, and although there have been vulnerabilities in SSH, it's a pretty solid protocol and can be used for doing this command line console access to remote systems in a secure fashion using an encrypted mechanism. And as I noted earlier, there are some related programs, primarily SCP, that are part of this SSH package and provide, again, some of the same functions that the R protocols like RExec and RShell, those types of protocols, provides the same functionality that they do. So secure copy you can use to copy from one system to another in the same way that you would use just CP on any Unix-like system. So you can use SCP to copy from one system to another, and the copy will be encrypted, and you can ensure that nobody is going to intercept those files and be able to read them in plain text or clear text. SSH has a lot of other capabilities as well. Of course, if you ever want to read more about SSH, you can just do man SSH. This particular implementation of SSH was created by the OpenBSD folks, and it's OpenSSH, although the original version of SSH was created by a guy in Finland, and he eventually went on to found a company all around that and his implementation of SSH, but other folks have implemented SSH as well. This happens to be a version on Mac OS. OpenSSH runs on most of the major operating systems. There are also implementations for Windows. For example, Putty is a very good free SSH client. It's got a graphical configuration control panel thing that starts up and allows you to configure all your connection settings. There's a lot of other different things we can do with SSH, and some of those we'll get into in subsequent lessons. But that's just a little bit of a primer on SSH and a couple of different ways you can authenticate to remote systems with it.